What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Gear or Gadget. Today we have special guest Tony Sangialosi. Tony, if you had to give 3 words to describe your hunting style, give me 3 right off the bat.
3 words to describe my hunting style. Dedicated, unique, and resilient.
All right, there you go. So if you can relate to any of those, keep in mind what he brings to the table today. We have 3 ground rules we need to cover. Number 1, most important rule, we're not here to brand bash any company. All the products that we are bringing to the table today, we have purchased, we have used them. Number 2, there is no use of the term, which Tony shouldn't even be invited today, game changer, because in the text when we were talking about coming on the show, he used the term. So we do have a knife, Chad has
in my pocket.
in his pocket, and he'll slit your tongue out if you use it.
For the record, I already knew the rule. It was just a joke.
Well, we'll keep an eye on him for this episode. Rule number 3, if you like what we're doing, you like what we bring to the table, just hit the thumbs up and subscribe. So let's get into it.
All right, so I'm first up. I'm gonna kick things off. And the product that I've brought into the office today, is something that I've been testing and playing with for 18 to 24 months, almost 2 years. So lots of experience with a specific product or type of product. And then even previously in my telecom days, I have a little bit of background in this. So what I brought in today is a directional Yagi antenna. This is a high gain antenna specifically designed and tuned for our cellular trail camera. So the Exodus Render, it's tuned for band 4 and band 13. So this is a 10 dBi, and if you're unfamiliar with the words or terms DBI, go check the signal strength video that we just dropped last month, then I'll explain a lot. But this will gain you signal in low signal areas on the Verizon 4G or LTE band. So band 4, band 13, this is specifically designed for. And the cool thing, running cell cameras over the last 3 years, we got a lot of them in the field now. I have a couple of different hunting properties that oftentimes I find myself hunting for a spot to put the camera based on signal rather than hunting for a spot to put the camera to get information on deer. And you end up hanging a camera in a place where that's the only place it's gonna work, but it's not doing you any good. So we started testing these things back in, I don't know if it was late 19, might have been early 2020, but a lot of experience with this, and overall, we've seen almost a 2-bar difference on average, 2-bar difference in signal, better signal in locations that we've used these. Now, being a directional antenna, there's a couple things you got to go through. Like you can't just throw this thing up in the air, plug it into a camera, and I'm good. You physically have to turn or manipulate that antenna to get it pointed towards whatever closest tower you have for it to work properly. So that's the difference between a directional antenna being aligned or an omnidirectional antenna where you just put it up and it's, you have a 360 radius there. The other thing to know about these is what type of coax that you're using. So this is just RG58. This is the cheaper coax, but each type of coax is going to have a different coefficient of loss. So it's super important from a consumer standpoint to understand this, because if you buy a 10 dBi antenna and you're using coax that loses, a half a dBi per foot, you use 10 foot of this and all of a sudden you just cut your signal boosting ability down to 5 dBi. So not only is the antenna important, but the actual coax that you're using is probably more important or equally as important when you're setting these things up.
So 1, I thought that was a quiver you were pulling out at first. 2, so obviously you're a trail cam expert, but how do you move that based on looking at your bars that change, or do you know where that closest tower is, for example?
Good, super good question. Regardless if you can visually see a tower, from a consumer standpoint, you have no idea what equipment is on that tower. So you have no idea if that's an AT&T tower,
okay,
if that's a US Cellular tower, could be Verizon. The best way to do this is, and it's almost a 2-man job to some extent, because you're up in the air 10 feet. The higher you get this thing up in the air, like in hill country where I am, the better odds you are of increasing the signal. So if you're up in the air, you have this thing plugged into a camera, you're moving this around and actually looking at the signal reading on the camera.
Got it.
That's the best way that I found to do it. Now, I do know some pretty ingenuitive people who have used this, and these come with a U-bolt to bolt onto a piece of pipe. I know guys who have done this on the ground. They'll put this on an 1.5-inch piece of PVC or a conduit or something, strap that to the tree loosely, have your camera down low, and then it'll just spin the pipe to get this thing to turn around the tree. If you're by yourself and you don't want to climb.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
It's super smart. I'm like, damn, why didn't I think of that? It took me, the first time I did this a couple of years ago, it took me well over an hour to get this thing set up and happy with the way that I wanted it, just being a little unfamiliar with the product.
Yeah, so I think it's also like extremely important to note that this boosts signal. It doesn't give you signal.
Correct.
So if you are in an area where you don't have service and you're thinking, oh man, this is my savior, it's not. If you have 1 bar, it could get you to 2 or 3. If you have 3 bars, it could get you to 4 or 5. If there's no signal in the area, there's no signal in the area. Cell cameras just flat out won't work. So I think that's very important to note. But if you do find yourself in an area where we recommend a minimum of 2 bars, if you're on the verge of that, sometimes you have 1, sometimes you have 2, that's your saving grace right there.
Oh, for sure. The very first time I've used this product, we were in an area in Southern Ohio in a location where there was, I think, 1 bar service, if I remember correctly, on that ground setup, on that scrape. There's 1 bar service. I went back in at a later time to put this up, and that camera it's been there since that was 2000, was that 19?
20.
That was 2020. So the camera's been there well over a year and has never lost signal, never done anything. It's just
That's
really
pictures from it every day.
Yeah. So the other important thing about this is we've been testing on this because we're soon going to be selling this product. So that's one of the reasons why I've had so much experience with this specific product. But there's a lot of options out there, and the most important thing is buying an antenna that's tuned for the frequency or bands that your camera runs on. Because if you buy an antenna, a Yagi antenna or directional antenna that is tuned for like band 5 or band 12, which is an AT&T 4G, AT&T LTE, it's not going to work on a Verizon cell camera. So it is important to know that specific antenna is going to operate within the frequencies of your actual trail camera. Because you mix that stuff up, it's not going to work.
Okay, so is there any advantage to having a directional antenna that you have to mess with and put it in the direction of the tower versus having an omni-channel?
Yeah, so typically the directional stuff, even though they're harder to set up, the performance gain is going to be better out of this versus an omni.
Is there a price difference or anything?
No, I think you can pick this whole setup. It's going to probably retail around $75 for us, which is pretty normal. I know that you can get on Amazon and buy some cheaper options with those omnidirectionals. I just talked to a customer a couple of days ago about this. It was like $50 for his setup. But I recommended him going this way, so I actually sent that back and it's going to directional Yagi route.
So this hooks into a camera, and then how far apart from the actual camera does that have to be up a tree? Let's just say, for example.
Well, every scenario is going to be different, and the great thing about that is you can, as long as you have an end. This is an end fitting that goes into the antenna. So this is an end female, end male, and then you have an SMA fitting for your coax that actually ties into the camera. This cable length is subjective to whatever that set is. So you can buy this in a 10-foot length, 20-foot length, or you can custom make these. And if you're handy and have the right tools, you can custom make these to any length that you need. But typically, 10 feet is going to get you, most of the time, get you
enough.
Get at least in my experience, 10 feet has gotten me where I needed to be. So I'm typically hanging my cameras up, 6 to 8 feet off the ground anyways. Another 10 feet above that, I'm at, almost hunting height, 16, 18, 20 feet. I've had no problems using these in those types of scenarios, unless I'm deep down into a bottom and then really you have no hope because you're down up, you're losing 500 feet in elevation from top to bottom. There's no way you're getting 500 feet in the air to hang.
Yeah,
Sure.
So just to add one more thing to this, these things come, they're not meant for specific hunting scenarios, right? So they come, you have galvanized hardware on this, which is shiny or can reflect light pretty easily. They come white or beige off-white, like eggshell. would be the correct term for that color, I guess.
Man.
Yeah, that's super manly. So you can see I have this thing painted. It is okay to paint these with non-metallic paint. It will not affect the performance if you're using just regular spray paint. If you use metallic paint on this, it will alter the performance of the antenna. So that is another super important note.
Does it ever enhance it?
No.
With metallic? Okay. It goes the other way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Overall, definitely a piece of gear for me. I believe in it so much that, again, we've done a lot of product testing on this, and we'll soon be selling these on our website here in October.
Yeah, I've never used one, but I can see, I don't have it. I'm not hunting anywhere I don't have bad signal. So I haven't needed it, but I do very easily see the advantage of having it. So it's a piece of gear for anyone running cell cameras that has shitty service.
Tony, what do you think?
I think it's pretty cool. I, just like Cam, I've not run into a scenario yet where I haven't had signal, luckily. But the only thing I would be nervous about with that is just, it's one extra thing for somebody else to see, to hopefully not mess with your gear. But that's the risk you're going to run with any camera that you're going to run. Sure. So if they're going to steal your camera, they're going to steal that anyways, right? If they're going to steal that, they're going to steal your camera anyways. So,
right.
But you go from a situation of not getting maybe a picture here and there to getting pictures. I mean, that definitely helps out on any hunt. So it's a great idea.
Cool. All right, Tony, what'd you bring?
I brought my Hiss strap. So this is a strap from Tethered that for me has been super helpful. I don't own property at this time, and I'm luckily have the opportunity to hunt a couple different properties locally. With that being said, I pack in every time. Because you never know when you get that phone call when somebody says, hey, thanks for respecting my land, but I have some new hunters coming, right? So I never want the chance of my stuff being gone when I come to show back up. So this, I was teetering between this and my bag, but this has been super helpful for me. And I have a process every time that I go in a tree. I climb with my sticks, get up, set my platform up, and then I pull out of my saddle my Hiss strap. So stands for hang your stuff, we'll say, right? But you run this through the tree, you attach it, you cinch it, and at this point, your tag end is hanging down. Now you can set this up, traditionally when you saddle hunt, you're behind the tree, right? So most people hang this facing them with the tag end hanging down. The first thing I do is I attach my bag right to the bottom of it. From there, I'll pull my bow up. Most times I'll use like an S-clip or S-beaner and attach it on one of the loops. Now I hang my bow. I'll take some other carabiners and hang a couple of them. So I have my grunt call or my rangefinder or, anything else that you should need. Obviously it's public land friendly as well. And there's actually I'm pretty sure somebody just produced a do-it-yourself video on kind of how to sew one of these together. But this has replaced those hooks for me, especially public land. You can't put anything in a tree, right? And those hooks, sliding them around the tree all the time get pretty annoying. So this has by far been very, very helpful for me.
I haven't used one. I actually have one coming in the mail. It should actually be here today, but it's from Latitude Outdoors, and theirs has a really cool feature on the tag end side of it. And just like you do, you hang your bow or you hang your bag on it, and you hang it down. You hang it high or low. So
I hang the whole Hiss strap. I hang high because I don't want to reach down for my bow, and I definitely don't want to reach up. So if I hang it probably a little bit higher, right around my head, the tag end puts my bag right in hand's reach, right? And then the loops are right there to grab my bow off of. So where are you gonna hang yours, you think?
The nice thing about the one that I got, no matter the diameter of the tree, your tag end's gonna be longer or shorter. Their tag end's adjustable, almost like it's on a rope man. And it's like you could just do that. So you could hang your bag really low on the tree to get it out of the way. And if you need it, you just lift up and get in it. So that's a really cool advantage. Awesome. Bow hangers for me are I hate them all. I haven't found a bow hanger that I love. And the bow hangers that are made for these Hiss straps are really nice. You could use that hero clip, or you could use The Genesis 3D guy has the one that kind of wedges in there.
Yeah, that's a good call on everything. Yep, he does.
They're pretty nice. I think not only does this keep your stuff easily accessible, yeah, it's super small.
This is what you got.
It's way smaller than bringing in a big bow hanger or something.
Yep.
It keeps your bow tight to the tree. Everything's tight. It's not hanging way out, but it gives you more options because you don't have to screw the stuff in. You can have better products to use.
Sure, and it's fully customizable too to how you want to hunt. Some people don't bring a grunt coal, but they bring something else, right? So this is something with a carabiner or, like we said, an S-clip that you can have this however you want to set it up, right? I've also seen people too, if they're on a tree that's leaning, let's say, but there's a branch next to them, you can run that through itself and have it on the branch that's next to you. So it's super versatile on how you want to use this.
Yeah, that's a good call. Everybody looks at that and you think about using it horizontally, but running it vertical, it's going to accomplish the same thing. I've never really thought about that. That's a good point.
Yep.
I've never used a his strap or used anything like that. I think that typically I'm using my pack, which is a tool belt. It's like a tool belt around the tree near the bottom, near my.
You put that around the tree itself?
Yes, I put that.
That's
yeah,
a good idea. I never thought about that.
But the problem I have is like with Cameron, as Cameron mentioned, is like not being in love with the way that I'm hanging my bow. And it's not necessarily like the issue of threading it in or strapping her in a tree, but it's the worry of that being in the way of a shot, like working my way around a tree, saddle hunting, and that bow hanger causing me just an extra small movement that's maybe not needed, or I'm worried about that when I'm at full draw, my top cam touching it and screwing something. It's never been a problem. I think it's more of a mental block in there, but I could see the advantage of using this because it takes that out of the equation. Like you don't have to think about it. Everything is tight to the tree. There's nothing in your way.
So a point of yours about putting your bag there. So the main reason why I hang this a little higher and make sure my bag's a little lower is one, and I just use the Sitka, it's not the tool belt, it's a toolbox.
Okay.
Just the normal backpack one.
Yep.
Right. So when that opens up, it has a loop. So I'll hang that on there, and I still wear knee pads, but with that bag hanging against a tree, I just use my knees up against my bag. And it gives me support there. Plus my bag's fully open. And with that toolbox, it has all my little pockets in it, everything. So even if I don't want to hang everything on the tree, my bag's open and it's accessible. And Sitka did a really good job of designing that bag where, you have a bunch of zips on the top and on the bottom it side pockets and this and that. So it kind of doubles as a knee pad if you hang your bag right too.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah, I definitely can see a lot of uses for it. I'm just like sitting here playing through my mind like different things. Chad, when you and I would hunt before, we would always take our bino harness off. Mm-hmm. And we'd have to take another screw-in thing and screw in the tree. Mm-hmm. You'd have a pocket full of screw-ins. And if you don't have those screw-ins, you don't have any way to hang anything.
Right.
So this makes it a lot easier. Like I could see putting a carabiner on there, strapping my binos to it, and they're right there. They're out of the way. So if you're one of those people that don't like to wear your bino harness, which I do wear it all the time now, but I remember Jared from the Habitat podcast that we had on, that was one of his biggest concerns was the bino harness getting in the way of his bridge.
Right.
So yeah, I'm on board. I can't wait to get mine. I'm excited to use it. The one that I bought is similar. It's the strap, but it comes with loops, and you can just put as many loops on it as you want.
Oh, that's neat.
So, there's a ton of loops on here, then you're never going to use that many.
And you can cut this too. So let's say you have a you're on private property or whatever, and you have the same tree that you're hunting out of all the time. You can actually cut this to length too. It's not going to cause you any issues. And when you get into a routine of hunting, even if you use this in a tree stand or whatever, but especially saddle hunting, that goes in first in my pouch, right? Then my lineman or my tether goes in after it. So as I'm hooking everything up, it's a system. You pull out, this is next. You pull it out, this is next. Then this is next. So that being super packable is really, really nice.
Yeah, I'm on board. I think it's a piece of gear, and I'm excited to use one this year. I actually have another product that isn't in yet that could potentially even replace this for me. So I'm super excited about that, and that'll be on a future episode. But for now, here. What do you think?
Like it.
Big deer all the way for me. Yeah. Even though I haven't used it, I can see all the benefits. I don't really see any cons. I think the one big thing that Tony mentioned is just cleaning your system up to be efficient, doing the same thing every time, keeping that in your dump pouch. That's the last thing that's, it's stored on the bottom. You get to the top, your hunting height, you put that on, and and your process of going up the tree and getting able to, I guess, ready to hunt. I could see that being pretty damn efficient versus digging through your pockets like what I do, digging for hooks and digging for bow hangers and things.
And I haven't been able, just a little side topic. There's been times where I can't get that screw-in thing in the tree in the morning.
Oh, I've had, yeah.
I'm just like,
well, listen, they're all cheap. The threads on them are not made for repetitive use. The thread's dull, and then you're like, I've gotten more sweaty putting freaking bow hangers in a tree than climbing a damn tree.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the truth.
yep.
And we're not supposed to be screwing anything in it. So.
Very true. Very true.
Well, in the event that you did,
So, yeah, I'm on board. I'm gonna go gear, Chad gear, Tony gear. Well, I'm gonna be the outlaw here, and I brought something that I think is. I didn't bring it. It's in the sky. I can't bring that down to the table, but what I want to talk about being a gadget is the moon. And that is a topic that we have covered a ton. And we talk to so many people. And what it boils down to for me is using the moon as a determinant to bow hunt or not is a gadget. I don't think the moon plays a role in the everyday scenario. We've talked to like Heath Cisco, Damien Riffle. We've talked to Johnny Rehart, Dan Infalt, Jeff Sturgis,
Justin Hollinsworth.
Justin Hollinsworth. All these guys have different opinions on the moon. They all kill deer. One guy will say that you need to sit on a field edge if it's a crescent moon. One guy will say 4 days after the full moon in the morning.
Bedding or
Like nobody can tell you why. There's not a single person that said, this is why that affects that. And to me, if you can't give me a reason why I need to be using the moon as a guide, it's just Ryan Springer's conversation comes to mind every time we talk about this. And he's a big, I don't remember what the moon phase was, but he said you need to be on a field edge if the moon phase.
I think it was quarter moon.
Quarter moon, yeah. He's like, you need to be hunting field edges because they're going to be coming to food early. We asked him why, and he's like, I don't really know, just watch.
Yeah.
That's not a good enough answer for me.
Yeah.
Like, what is it the moon, or are you just saying like, oh, okay, it's a quarter moon, I need to hunt a field edge, and it just so happens that the deer are feeding at that time? Have you hunted on a half moon? Have you hunted on a full moon? Is that why, or is it just something in your head that you're using as confidence?
Yeah.
Which, if that's your thing, cool. If you need to get that extra motivation to go out and hunt, it's like, okay, it's my moon phase, you're excited, that's fine. But in a real world, everyday scenario, public land, nothing's controlled. I don't think the moon plays enough of a role to determine whether you should hunt or not.
So here's a question for you. You've been talking about moon phase. So quarter moon, waning, waxing, crescent, full moon, like, right? You have all these terms, but you haven't mentioned anything about the transit times, overhead, underfoot. And there's an argument here that affects the gravitational pull of the earth, of what is physically happening on earth. Guys talk about stones or rocks coming to the surface of a field because gravity is changing. It affects the ocean tides. People, fishermen swear by the moon, say it affects their feeding pattern and the times that they should fish. So there's like this argument of transit times.
Transit times.
Well, maybe not even, yeah, I think I have an argument for that, but there's an argument of the moon affecting everything else. So why wouldn't it affect whitetails? But no one can tell you really how it affects them or why, other than they'll go in and hunt a bedding area, maybe in the morning because there's the transit, there's an overhead moon. So they think the deer are going to be back to bed late. So they're in there hunting that on that premonition where they otherwise maybe wouldn't be and wouldn't know if that deer was coming back to bed late or not.
Yeah.
And I think to add to that point is you can't pull out all the other elements to, let's say there's a a moon that somebody favors over something else. Well, you can't pull out the weather, and just leave the moon. You can't pull out maybe somebody bumped a deer on another property and caused it. You can't take all these other elements out and just leave the moon to say this is that the moon is only what caused this, because there could be barometric pressure rise or drop, or there could be a cold front coming in. There could be so many other things. So I think it's just really hard to kind of prove that, hey, it was just the moon that.
Yeah, you can't put a deer in a vacuum and put the moon in it and change the phase
Exactly.
and watch how they react.
Exactly.
Which there's been so many studies in captive environments, and there's a lot of stuff that says the moon does affect whitetails. I'm not hunting in a captive environment.
Right.
So there's just we've covered this so much, but if you are a full moon guy, maybe this is a question for you. Leave it in the comments below. If you're a full moon guy, does fog, or remember where we were talking about at night, if it's really cloudy,
It's about the illumination, not necessarily
the phase.
the full moon. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
How much light is
I
available
like
at night?
fog. I like fog. Every time that there's a foggy morning, my cameras blow up.
yeah, that's something that Steve
I was just texting somebody this morning about it, that I was on the way here and there was deers on the side of the road. My cameras were going nuts this morning. There's got to be something with fog.
that could be another topic we bring up. That's another thing. We run so many cameras, and last year I bought the moon guide.
Me too.
And
Me too.
I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to pay attention. Red moon, the camera should be on fire, right?
Yeah.
We talked to Damian Riffle. Damian said that, well, he's a red moon guy, right?
No, he has something different
New
around.
moon.
He's a new moon on like between the 14th and 16th of October or something like that, I think.
Yep. The first new moon or something, whatever it is. And he's like, okay, well, I had a 96-degree day and it's too hot outside. I'm not hunting. But it was his moon phase. And he had a 190-inch deer at his feeder and didn't hunt.
Wow.
And he says, that's the moon phase for him. Every time he gets that moon phase, if it's 150 degrees outside, he's hunting because that's his moon phase. And that's fine, but I'm watching correlations to where I have cameras and maybe I just don't have my cameras in the right spot for that moon phase. But the red moon, deer is supposed to be everywhere at 342. I look at my cameras and there's nothing on camera. And like I said, maybe I just don't have them in the right area. But the moon guide will tell you, okay, you need to hunt a field edge because it's this moon phase. You need to hunt a bedding area because it's this moon phase, and the peak movement is going to be at this exact time because the moon is going to be overhead or underfoot at that time. And I just did not see the correlation. I didn't put this stuff on an Excel sheet, really break it down and analyze it, but I paid attention to it last year. And you and I both were really trying to get a grasp on the moon and understand, is it something that we need to take into effect? Is it something I need to consider? And for me, I'm not a moon guy. I'm not. I just don't think it plays enough of a role. It doesn't outweigh anything else in my algorithm to consider it.
I know. I do think there's just too much that can come into play to just to say that the moon caused something.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys that I respect, a lot of whitetail hunters that I respect and have, tremendous admiration towards what they've done in their whitetail career. And a lot of those guys believe in the moon. They believe in the moon. Maybe it's a phase, maybe it's the transit times. So over the last couple years, I've had this thing in my mind that I'm just kind of stretching or reaching, just trying to grasp on to something that is going to tell me that the moon makes a difference. I want to believe it's going to make a difference in deer movement. And I've been just grasping for straws on hope and prayer. And I just cannot, again, in my hunting, my style, I cannot come up with a correlation that the moon is going to help me. But yet, I still pay attention to the transit times. Even 2021, I will still pay attention to the transit times, hoping that it's going to give me something that I might not have on a different day.
Has there been anything related to that has caused any more or any less movement? Looking at the transit times and things like that you saw? Repetitive enough?
Not repetitive enough to physically have a 100% confidence in it. No. Again, I think that there have been some different times, but then I'm trying to just stretch and draw conclusions. Like there's not enough concrete evidence there for me. And again, maybe that's, I'm hunting in the wrong spot. Maybe I have my cameras in the wrong spot. Maybe it could be me, but in my mind, I'm really stretching on a hope and prayer to try to make the moon something that it's probably not.
Yeah, I just
Go ahead.
no.
Oh, the only thing that there was 2 deer last year that I was watching specifically, and I kept a log. I forget who I was listening to as a podcast. I forget whose, but this hunter was keeping a log of every time this deer came. So wind direction, temperature, moon phase, this and that. So I started doing the same thing. And again, it could have been just these 2 deer who had different personalities, but it didn't matter for them. They showed up. Most times when they showed up, it was the consistent wind that made them show up. But that was the only factor. It wasn't the moon, unfortunately. But again, it could have been just those two deer had different personalities, or made them come out. It just wasn't the moon. I could tell you that.
Yeah, that's
Unfortunately.
that's what I've kind of drawn from all the conversations that we've had. We have a lot of content around this, and we even have we were doing the Thursday threshold, and it's a really good conversation if you want to go get a couple different perspectives on what, like, don't take my word for it. Go watch all these other guys talk, these deer killers, man, like best of the best, and go listen to what they have to say about it and draw your own conclusions. But the conclusion that I drew from it was every one of them had an inconsistent theory on it.
Yeah, it was all different.
Yeah,
they all had a different subjective opinion on the topic.
Yeah, and like if you can't give me a concrete how or why, I just can't buy into it. And I think Heath Cisco was the guy that we talked to about it, and for him, it's that extra motivation. So if you have a lot of things with weather, the guys talk about is stagnant weather. So if you have 50 degrees for 6 days and the wind direction's northwest every day, maybe that moon phase switches, and that's what you need to get you out there. He just used it as that extra push. He doesn't think like, okay, it's my moon phase, I got to go. But there's a different moon phase now. It's just an extra little half a point.
A little bit of confidence.
Yeah.
So I was Dan Bayes I was talking to last year, and there was a deer, this 9-point I was after, and I was asking him about a couple different things that maybe I should be doing, and his advice was you need to go in with intent, and whatever gives you that confidence to go in there and say I'm killing this deer tonight is what you need to use. And that was the best advice that anybody's ever given me, is you need to go in with intent. So if that's the moon, then use it and go in there with that attitude of killing that deer tonight.
Yeah, I think we'll end there. That's great. But moon gadget.
I'm still on the fence.
Just need something. I need something scientific and proven.